Let's go.
Village of Wheeling regular meeting is now called to order. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Trustee Argyris.
Here.
Trustee Here.
Here.
Trustee Hyde.
Here.
Trustee Vogel.
Here.
Trustee Brady.
Here.
Trustee Lang.
Here.
President Navascado.
Here. Approval of the minutes of the special meeting of April 23rd.
So moved.
Motion made by Trustee Argyris.
Second.
Second by Trustee Brady. Roll call, please.
Trustee Argyris.
Yes.
Trustee Here.
Yes.
Trustee Hyde.
Yes.
Trustee Vogel.
Yes.
Trustee Brady.
Yes.
Trustee Lang.
Yes.
President Navascado.
Yes. Mr. Fondulis, any changes to the agenda?
No, Madam President.
There's no proclamations, appointments. During citizens' concerns and comments, you will be given an opportunity to address any matter on the agenda this evening or any topic that is relevant to village business. You will be given 5 minutes to speak. At the end of your 5 minutes, you will be asked to return to your seat. Please refrain from repeating comments made by other citizens. I will ask you to move on in your statement if it becomes a repetitive statement continual. This is not an opportunity to debate or question any petitioner, board member, or staff member. With regard to the Phil Haven matter, the opportunity to ask questions of the staff and petitioner was given to you at a public hearing during which over 10 hours of testimony was heard. The village board will consider your concerns and comments, its consideration of any item on the agenda. The board expects all comments and citizens to be civil and to maintain order at all times. We thank you all for your anticipated cooperation. Clerk Simpson?
George Heber.
Good evening, and I thank the board and the village trustees for giving me this opportunity to speak. I'm here tonight in regards to a good communities person who's lived in this community for a number of years. He's been a great friend of mine, and he's helped me do so many different projects. It's a sin. First time I met Dave Bunda, I met him at the council meeting at the St. Joseph the Worker, and I made the cardinal sin mistake and said, oh, you're an ex-Marine, huh? That didn't go over good. Well, anyway, that's how I really got to know Dave. Now, what we're doing, Dave has been in the hospital fighting cancer for, right now, possibly over 9 months. He was in the first time in the hospital for 32 days. After that, he's been back and forth for chemo all the time. And he used up all his vacation pay. He's used up most of his 401k he borrowed from. And as everybody knows, they take 10% taxes on that 401k when they file taxes. So that's not a good deal. Anyway, the nights we decided to put on a spaghetti dinner for Dave. And we asked the people to join in there, friends of Dave and Chris Bunda, for an all-you-can-eat spaghetti dinner at St. Joseph the Worker Social Hall. Dave developed acute leukemia approximately 9 months ago and is putting up a courageous fight. Once a Marine, always a Marine. Against this terrible disease. The dinner is to honor Dave for his work in the community and to help defray the expenses of his brave fight against this terrible disease. We also wish to honor Chris for her devotion to Dave as he takes on the most difficult battle of his life. Dave and Chris are longtime residents of Wheeling and members of St. Joseph the Worker Church. Excuse me, I'm breaking down a little bit. This is unusual for me.
Yes, it is. All right. What's the date, George? Why don't we just do the date so you don't...
I'll give you the date, June 1st, from 4 to 8 p.m. There's tickets on sale after all the masses, or you can make a donation to Dave Bunda at 181 West Dundee Road, St. Joseph the Worker Catholic Church. And you can mail, the check can be checked to the Knights of Columbus, care of St. Joseph the Worker Catholic Church, 181 West Dundee Road, Wheeling, Illinois. And I don't think I've used my 5 minutes. But I thank you for giving me this opportunity.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
Thank you, George.
Mary Gottlieb.
Mary's right.
Mary.
Good evening, Madam President, trustees, and esteemed leadership of the Village of Wheeling. I am Mary Godley, and I live at 3020 Jackson Drive in Arlington Heights. You incorporated us several years ago. I am a registered voter of the Village of Wheeling. A little bit of my background: I have lived in the Village of Wheeling for 19 years. I strongly believe in giving back to the community. For 17 years, my husband and I have been volunteers at PADS, 8 of those at Kingswood Methodist. Been a Cub Scout leader for 4 years, a Girl Scout leader for 6 years, PTA president for 2, and on the board for 3. And my husband has been dragged along to many PTA events also. I am also the Mary of the many emails you have received and the packet of information. I am speaking on behalf of the residents of Lakeside Villas who have signed our petitions and are opposed to this development. It has been expressed to me by many members of Lakeside Villas that their president is not accurately representing them on this subject. Mary Kruger will speak at the end of our presentation. As some of you are aware, I have had a difficult time getting information from DeBerry Development Group, LLC. I even filed a Freedom of Information Act with Jessica from DeBerry for more information. I'm not an attorney, apparently I did it incorrectly. Most of the information I have come across, I have come from other sources. In early April, before the Planning Commission meeting on the 12th, I contacted the Kenneth Young Agency. I asked that somebody please contact me back. Mitch Bresky, the Kenneth Young CEO, was kind enough to call me later that day, and he did answer several of my questions. The information I'm going to speak about is from this conversation. I do feel that DeBerry has been misleading in their presentation. In the Planning Committee meetings, several times it was brought up that the fact that there are over 1,000 people in Wheeling who need these services, and that is accurate, perhaps even 1,100 or more. Jessica continues to emphasize that this housing is for those people. Yet, as I understand it, of the 50 units, only 24 are going to be for those people referred from Kenneth Young and Alexian. The other 26 are for people who are on the waiting lists from HUD for low-income housing. Now, this is a lottery system, and the people cannot be handpicked from this area. So the 26 people or families that meet the housing criteria would be able to reside in the complex, the next one within the Cook County. No new people can apply, as this application process is and has been closed for several years. My understanding is that these people do not have to go through the screening process that the other 24 units would have to through Kenneth Young and Alexian. Now, at the Planning Commission meeting, when asked if those people from Wheeling would get the first preference for the 26 units, Jessica did vaguely mention federal housing guidelines, but she didn't actually answer the question definitively. The inference here is that DeBerry is meeting Wheeling's needs. This is not factual. This development is not just for Wheeling and the surrounding suburbs. Any hand-picking or preferential treatment is against federal housing laws. DeBerry stated that the application for the housing is over 27 pages long and tenants are well screened. The packet I provided to each of you contains the HUD application. It is not a 27-page document, as was inferred. The actual application from the tenant is 3 pages long. Now, this would be referring to the 26 units. So I would suggest that the trustees ask for a copy of the application that will be used for the screening. At the Arlington Heights Village meeting about Boger Place, the DeVary Development Group Limited Liability Company stated that their criteria for the development of the facilities is a quiet residential street. We like to have a site near doctors, dentists, and some shopping. And that's quotations. Hintz Road is not a quiet street. It is not a quiet residential street. It actually is a hazardous street via IDOT. I am concerned that with this facility, that the DeVary Development Group, they changed their criteria for what is the best possible location for these permanent supportive housing facilities. It has been stated from DeVary that people with challenges won't have transportation. But how do we know this? How do we know they won't have their own cars? And then they'll be walking and bicycling. Is it my 5 minutes?
Your 5 minutes is up.
Okay, thank you. Thank the board for their time.
Thank you.
Richard Gottlieb.
Good evening, Madam President, trustees, and esteemed leadership of the Village of Wheeling. I'm Richard Godley, and I live at 3020 Jackson Drive. I'm also speaking tonight on behalf of many people that could not attend this evening due to a Wheeling High School Senior Awards ceremony. As Mary just stated, we didn't know we would be back-to-back, so I'll just echo a little bit. I'm a 19-year resident, and I've done work with PADS, coached the boys and girls soccer right on these fields, coached boys and girls basketball over at the rec center, was a scout leader, and was dragged to various PTA functions by my wife. I will be briefly speaking tonight for some of the residents, with some of the residents from Arlington Heights, Prospect Heights, and Buffalo Grove. We will try to limit our number of speakers so that this meeting doesn't go till daybreak. We are united here tonight to voice our opposition to DeVary Development Group LLC's proposed project on Hintz Road. And for those in the audience that don't know what an LLC is, it stands for Limited Liability Company. What is the difference between a limited liability company and a corporation or an S-Corp? I'll give you an example. Let's say a developer builds substandard housing and God forbid someone is injured or killed. If a lawsuit occurs, it is harder to pierce the veil of an LLC versus a corporation. My source is Joe Ender, certified public accountant. Who could the lawsuit be against? City, town, village that approved the housing. Jessica from DeVary Development Group tells a great story. She just doesn't tell the whole story. We are trying to fill in the blanks, and we still have many questions that have not been answered. On the water and floodplain issues, we would like to know why was the 1980 flood study used by DeVary Development Group LLC, who I will refer to as DDG, Lakeside Villas, and their engineers to examine the water issues that plague this area. In 1980, there were 9 fewer homes on Jackson Drive. The Brookground townhouses to the west of Garden Fresh were not built. Ashford Drive was not developed. These all produce stormwater that runs into the sewers by Lakeside Villas and then onto Jackson Drive. I am opposed to this development because they did not use the 2009 flood analysis that the Village of Wheeling commissioned for $75,000 to Christopher Burke Engineering Limited. DDG LLC's engineer has indicated they will install large underground water tanks under the Phil Haven development. If this is a viable option for the flood control in this heavily saturated area, why was it not mentioned in the 2009 study? It was suggested at a meeting hosted by the Public Works Department that 3.5 acres of vacant land be purchased for a large retention pond in 2009. They, as well as Christopher Burke Engineering, contracted by the Village of Wheeling, stated that even this recommendation would not be large enough to stop the flooding we experience when it rains. I am opposed to this new development that in spite of their engineering plans to handle their stormwater, there will still be an impact on the already existing flooding problems that exist in this area. We are not against permanent supportive housing. In fact, Clearbrook has a home at the corner of Cambridge and Anthony. Low density, well supervised, great idea. But for many, many reasons, which the speakers to follow will give you, We feel this is not the right project for this type of area and this piece of land, and I thank you for your time today.
Mary Kruger.
Good evening, Madam President, trustees, and esteemed leadership of the Village of Wheeling. I am Mary Kruger, and I live at 3215 Jackson Drive, Arlington Heights, Illinois 60004, Village of Wheeling proper. I'm a 40-plus year resident of Jackson Drive and a registered voter in the Village of Wheeling. First, I am presenting 448 signatures from our e-petition and 306 handwritten signatures collected since last Tuesday afternoon. 88% of the electronic signatures and roughly 95% of the handwritten signatures represent Wheeling and the immediately adjacent communities of Prospect Heights, Arlington Heights, and Buffalo Grove, who are opposed to the DeVary Development Group LLC request to build a permanent supportive housing facility on Hintz Road. You've already heard from some of them this evening. Elaine, can I give this to you?
Thank you.
Second, my concern is directly related to items 13A-1 and 2 of tonight's agenda. They are the requests by DeVary Development Group LLC for the President and Board of Trustees to approve a text amendment to the existing R4 multifamily dwelling municipal code in our village regarding residential support services and parking. I don't believe the Plan Commission fully understood the future ramifications of this change and how it will set a precedent for other R4 zoned properties, either existing or that may be developed in the future in our village. I respectfully request now that this decision is before you, our senior-most leadership of the community, to carefully consider what potential Pandora's box this text, as it is currently written, may open for us. The verbiage is unclear and vague at best about residential support services for this particular facility and its proposed resident type. I believe that based on DeVary's public description of this PSH facility, residential support services needs to be much more clearly defined. The ratio of residential support service providers to the mentally or physically challenged tenants should be more like 1 for every 4 units, as opposed to the 1 per every 10 units is offered by the developer. For these tenants, this more supportive structure should be offered 24 hours, 7 days a week, as opposed to the 1 resident manager for all 50 units that has been offered previously. In addition, the number of leases supporting the financially challenged tenants should be reviewed at least semi-annually by the Village of Wheeling. Now, I'm not sure what the actual requirement for that is, but whatever it is, it should be more stringent for a PSH such as this. Item number 2 regarding parking, I fear that you'll also be setting a precedent, a very dangerous one, about parking for this facility. My fear is that other R4 multifamily zoned properties, either existing or in the future, will appeal to the Village of Wheeling to amend their zoning via text amendment for whatever reason, whether it be residential support services or anything else that would keep them from being zoned special use. Approving this text amendment as written could feasibly impact other existing municipal zoning codes, R1, 2, 3, 3A, that are currently in place in our village. I don't want to see my board be bullied in the same manner that Arlington Heights is. I sincerely thank you for your time and for your consideration this evening not to approve this text amendment as written. Thank you very much.
Jarrett LaCasey.
Thank you this evening for giving me an opportunity to speak about the DeVary Development Program. I would like to speak on a simpler subject. There was, well, first of all, I live on Jackson Drive in Wheeling, or in Arlington Heights, annexed by Wheeling. I also have 2 family companies that are located on Foster Avenue in Wheeling. I'm deeply entrenched in the community. I think that, first of all, our community needs to really understand that, and we need to be perfectly clear that we are willing to help individuals that need help, any special needs, any low income. That is absolutely a priority of the village. It's an important thing to have in community. But after listening to Jessica from DeVary Development speak at our previous meetings, I tend to have a few quotes that she had spoken that I'm a little confused about. It was proposed, or she had stated, quote, very few of the proposed tenants, up to 154, I believe, will be driving. That's where they were going for the variation of the parking. And she actually was quoted in saying that they only needed 7 to 10 parking spots because so few people are going to be driving their cars. This means that these folks would really depend on a very, very good public transportation system located very, very close to them. We're talking about 150 plus tenants. This is why they wanted a parking variance. She also stated that 70% of these tenants are going to be unemployed or looking for work. And the most important quote she had is that she chose this site in large part because it has access to some of the best suburban transportation available. Part-time positions, in my opinion, are nighttime work, weekends, holidays, those types of things. Usually that's where the part-time fills in. Well, we agree as a community that a special needs facility must not only have adequate transportation, the building should be located in an area with above average, or may I say superb, transportation. We have several bus, there was an email sent by Jessica to, I believe, Mr. Argyris that listed several bus routes that were available for these people to use. And those are bus routes 221, 223, and 227. I have those bus routes here, and none of those run on Hintz Road. Truly, we did a little homework for her. The homework that we did, our community did for her, the bus route is actually Pace Route 234. Okay, this just must have been an oversight. But what we have found is Pace Route 234 runs from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday. No weekends, no evenings, no holidays, period. Now, part-time work, again, mainly works into the evening on the holidays. Who doesn't hire the part-time to use over the holidays? I think that's a very valid point. Also, may I add that the bus stop is just a block away, but it is an uncovered bus stop. Okay, it's also at the entrance of a very, very busy community, Lakeside Villas. If you've ventured into this area, you will know that there's a tremendous amount of cars going in and out of this area. Having, let's say we have 154 residents and we have 70% of those residents looking for work and or 30% trying to go to work by using the PACE system, you're going to have 50 to 60 people standing on that corner with a very high volume of traffic. I think that having no trains, having limited access to bus is a very large problem for this development group. Now, even if it is a substantial enough transportation situation, think about this. You have people walking there on a beautiful day like today, it would be no problem. Well, let's drop the temperature to 10 degrees and throw in a little wind and snow. That's 5 months of our physical year. So you have people standing outside who not only are physically challenged or mentally challenged, they are definitely going to be getting a real surprise when they're standing out in this type of weather. We need to remember that DeVary Development is a for-profit organization, and our community is concerned that profit may come before the residents of this special needs facility. The lack of transportation available to this facility is one of many issues our community has with DeVary Development and the Phil Haven project. Consider the basic needs of these individuals.
Sir, your time is up.
Oh, thank you for your time. I was done.
Anna Marie Lundstrom.
Good evening, Madam President and trustees. I am Anne Marie Lundstrom. I live at 2644 North Waterman Avenue in Arlington Heights. I'm the second house from the corner of Hintz and Waterman, just across the street from Wheeling. Hintz Road is a very dangerous county road. IDOT has the daily volume count listed at 19,000 per day. I live on Waterman, and my children were bused to Wheeling High School for free in spite of being within walking distance because of traffic/safety concerns. There are no crosswalks unless you walk to the traffic signals at Schoenbeck or Windsor. There are no sidewalks on the Prospect Heights side of the street. In a vehicle, turning left, especially during peak times, is very dangerous. Since it has been stated by DDG LLC that many of these residents will not drive or own cars, crossing Hintz Road on a foot or bicycle would be an insanely hazardous. The Division of Highway Bureau of Operations states that crossing a 4-lane roadway is a Type 3 hazard, and no sidewalks makes it a Type 4 hazard. I am opposed to the development of Phil Haven facility because it is just too dangerous. This is from Section 556-160 of the school code, which I have a copy for you. Any way you would exit Phil Haven from Jackson Drive, Space Self-Storage, Wheeling Auto Center, Lakeside Villa, Mallard Lake, VIP Apartments, Prindle Avenue, Waterman Avenue, Mark Lane, or North Cornwall Avenue, there is a huge outpouring of existing residential business traffic. During peak times of the day, Hintz Road is a treacherous thoroughfare. This is not a safe location for the residents of this development. I question, was there a traffic study done? I saw that there was a parking lot study done. I did not see a traffic study. Hintz Road is a Type 4 hazardous road. This is not a good place for people with disabilities. Thank you. And if I have time, I will continue what Mary was saying. Lastly, hold up the comprehensive plan. What happened to the following comprehensive plan the VOW adopted in 2003? On page 96, it said, Wheeling has a substantial stock of affordable housing in comparison to its neighbors. What the village lacks in housing desirable to higher income buyers and the move-up market. This means decreasing the percentage of rental housing and multifamily units and increasing the percentage of owner-occupied single-family homes. Hintz Point were to be high-end owner-occupied. Jackson Drive and Horizon Trails are your higher-end single-family housing. We are what comprehensive plan was all about. This apartment building is a slap in the face to those of us who took a chance, built larger homes with larger tax bills. We helped to raise Wheeling up, reputation-wise and profile. If it makes you feel better, I had the longest speech of the group. Thank you.
Phil Mustachia.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. And I really do mean that. I'm a 25-year resident of Jackson Drive, and for a long time we were unincorporated Cook County, and we did not get this opportunity to come before you. When the annexation process began, a lot of us weren't real excited about it. We've built to it, and it's nice to have a group of people in our corner representing us when we need that. My point here is very simple. I think, I do this without a college education, but I consider myself a pretty bright guy. I can't find the address to this place. We called it 2418, we call it 2422, now all of a sudden we call it 1450. I'm driving by there, there was a sign up there that we were gonna have public hearings, but at the same time there was a sign up there that said Hintz Point Luxury Condos. Well, why would when did this all come about? All of a sudden that sign came down the day before the last hearing with the Plan Commission. I'd just like to know why this kind of thing has got to get pushed through without everybody getting all of the information. There's just a lot of questions out there, and all of a sudden we went through the plan board. I listened to the plan board. We didn't get a chance to speak at the last two meetings because there was already 10 hours before that. But the plan board was not sold completely on this program. And then the next day, boom, the trailer's down and it's like they're ready to go. I really hope that you folks will really look into this. I don't want to say that the folks that live by us, we're a great community. We love our people that are around us. We will take care of whoever we have to take care of. I don't have any problem with disabled people, mentally ill people. I don't like this program. I vote in every election, and I just don't like the way that this thing is put together. I'll save the rest of my 5 minutes for the next person. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Anne Marie Lundstrom.
She did already.
Oh, you're ready to, I'm sorry, I have your name down here twice. Sherry Hickey.
Good evening, Madam President, trustees, and esteemed leadership of the Village of Wheeling. I am Sherry Hickey. I live at 1215 Woodview Drive, Prospect Heights. I am a concerned citizen of Prospect Heights, but actually am the most northwestern address of Prospect Heights. I represent my neighbors in the Prospect Heights neighborhood directly across from this proposed project. These include, and I will only name some, Megan Hickey, Matthew Okewitz, Ida Olzalka, Susan Naughton, John Naughton, Carolyn Pink, Mitchell Pink, Sheila Stefani, Rachel Stefani, Jay Nagel, Todd Caprak, Barry Nagel, Kristen Caprak, Cynthia Preston, Robert Preston, Josephine Calandrino, Nicole Preston, Joseph Preston, Rick Sternquist, Dina Sternquist, Joan Anderson, Bill Anderson, Patty Carroll, Robert Carroll, Lindsay Carroll, Alex Hoffman, Mary Wager, Ron Wager, Nick Masico, and Pam Masico. I could go on, but I won't since we only have 5 minutes. Mitch Brusky, CEO of Kenneth Young, said at a public hearing that many of these mentally challenged individuals would have diagnoses that would include individuals with bipolar, manic depressive, and even people hearing voices. As KinderCare is 0.2 miles away and Tarkington Elementary School is actually down the street, with Wheeling High School being the furthest at 0.7 miles. This puts the entire youngest population at risk of individuals that are not being supervised with taking medication. As a nurse, I can say that individuals on medication are desirable residents, but individuals off of medications can be impulsive and have uncertain reactions. I am minimizing what actually can happen. I am concerned about the minimal on-site supervision that will be available for the tenants that are deemed mentally challenged. Please take thoughtful consideration that your decision doesn't just affect the Wheeling residents. Your decision will affect the surrounding communities, which include my neighborhood, the most northwestern part of Prospect Heights. I ask that you vote no to this proposed project located on Hintz Road. I would have told you the exact address, but I'm unsure of what that true address has now become. Thank you very much.
Rita Kozliniak.
Good evening, Madam President and esteemed trustees. I'm here to speak for Phil Haven. I live in Buffalo Grove, and we've lived in our home for 44 years and have raised our 4 children here. Our children have attended Tarkington Elementary School in Wheeling, Holmes Junior High in Wheeling, and Wheeling High School. Our library is Indian Trails Library. We definitely have strong connections to Wheeling. Our youngest child suffers from a brain disorder and would be a candidate for residency at Phil Haven. He is your neighbor now, and if you were to meet him, I don't feel that any of you would object to having him remain as your neighbor as a resident of Phil Haven. He's soft-spoken, he's well-educated, he's articulate, thoughtful, kind, helpful, a very good person. Before his illness, he was an Eagle Scout, an honor student, a good athlete, and a recipient of several college scholarships. His future looked bright. Before his illness, we As perhaps some of you are, as perhaps some of you are, unfamiliar with mental illness, and perhaps would have been concerned about having mentally ill persons as neighbors. We now know differently. The prospective residents of Phil Haven are nonviolent folks who need help and will not threaten the tranquility of the community. Today, with so much information about the high incidence of post-traumatic stress syndrome, a mental illness, among returning veterans and the number of advertisements for depression on TV, it's almost impossible to remain unaware of the prevalence of mental illness in our society. You have to know that there are persons with mental illness living in our community. So, indisputably, the problem exists. What should be done about it? You could pretend that you don't know about it, it isn't there, and do nothing. Of course, it won't go away. It will get worse. More homelessness, more violence, more danger, more police calls, more court costs, more hospital costs, more jail costs. And we will all pay. Or, as an aware, informed, responsible body, you could address the problem and recommend a solution: permanent supportive housing. It works. People do get better. It saves taxpayer dollars, it makes the community safer, and it's the right decision. I urge you to make Phil Haven a reality. Thank you for your time.
Ken Dorff.
He's not here.
He's not here.
What did he say?
Mary Lou Lowry.
Hello. I'm Mary Lou Lowry, and I'm speaking in support of the parking variance. The NAMI chapters in the northwest suburbs about 2 years ago did a survey of about 500 people who would live in apartments such as Phil Haven. Of those surveyed, only 50% had licenses to drive, and of that 50%, only 50% of those had cars. So the true need for the residents is very small at Phil Haven. I would say 12 to 15, and so I think that the 50 spaces is more than adequate.
Where does she live? I'd like to know where she lives.
We could ask him.
Mary Lou, could you tell me where you live? Glen Ellen? Could you come up to the...
Glen Ellen.
I'm with the Task Force on Housing, plus I'm with NAMI, and I also had a daughter with a mental illness, so I know very well what it is like to have a family member with a mental illness. And I will say here that when I see so many people opposed to this, my daughter died by suicide, and sometimes I think maybe she got it right, which I hate to say.
Sheila Schultz?
Where's she from?
Sheila Schultz, 393 Meadowbrook Lane, Wheeling, Illinois. I've been a resident of Wheeling for 57 years. Madam President and Board of Trustees, I would like to comment that members of the Plan Commission and the staff are to be commended for the careful scrutiny they gave to this proposal. They reviewed detailed reports, conducted hearings lasting nearly 10 hours, during which they heard presentations from the developer, service providers, as well as comments and questions from citizens. The commissioners gave special consideration to parking and flooding concerns and were satisfied with the adjustments and agreements that were made. The engineers of Lakeside Villas and the developer worked together with the village engineer on a plan to control water runoff one that could improve the situation for Lakeside residents. Transportation has been mentioned. The transportation for this location is excellent, being directly on a PACE bus fixed route. PACE van service is another option for the residents. And PACE has made it very clear that they are willing to work with the people, the residents of Fairhaven. The need is clear. The previous speakers have made that clear. Considering the history and the professional qualifications of DeVere, Election Brothers, and Kenneth Young Centers, and the financial commitment they've made, I'm confident in their abilities to develop and maintain Fairhaven as a very special community in our village. It will be an important step toward helping our residents and others continue their journey to recovery. It will also be a high-quality addition to our housing stock. An attractive building surrounded by generous green space, built on what was an unsightly, long-vacant piece of land, will be a valuable tax asset and an improvement to the appearance of the village. In light of the many benefits that this proposal offers to the village and its residents, I look forward to you voting yes on Fairhaven. Thank you.
Hugh Brady.
Good evening. My name is Hugh Brady. I live at 272 Jules Road in Inverness, and I am a retired school teacher from District 21, taught at Cooper Middle School for 34 years. I'm also the president of the Illinois chapter of NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness. And if you're not familiar with NAMI, it's a grassroots citizen-based organization that provides support and education and advocacy for people with mental illness. A number of years ago, 5 area NAMI chapters created the Housing Task Force because of the tremendous shortage of supportive housing for people with mental illness in the north and northwest suburbs. And our goal was to work with villages, to work with municipalities to create this type of housing, and you've heard how much a need there is for this housing. One of the previous speakers mentioned that talked about several of the previous speakers have talked about the location of Fairhaven, and one of the previous gentlemen who spoke talked about the Hintz Point development that was originally planned there. But it seems to me that location is really not the issue, because wherever a project like this was to be sited, there would be objections from neighbors. Some of them might be cloaked in other terms, but a lot of the objection would really be fear of people with mental illness. And so the question is not the location. You decided already several years ago when you approved Hintz Point that multifamily housing would be appropriate for this site. So the questions are then before you, parking, which Mary Lou has already talked about, and the text amendment, which would allow supportive services to have offices on site. And it would seem to me that given the concerns about traffic that some of the previous speakers have mentioned, that having the service providers come to the site would be much more beneficial than having the residents go out into the community to get their mental health services. I'd also like to address another concern that one of the previous speakers mentioned. The people that would be living at Fairhaven would be people who are capable of independent living. They don't need supervision. People who need supervision are in another type of facility. They would be in a nursing home or a hospital, or perhaps a group home. But the people who would live at Fairhaven would be people who would be selected for their ability to live independently. So they would not need supervision. And finally, in a well-run permanent supportive housing development, service providers tell us that between 70 and 80% of the people will see their mental illness symptoms completely disappear. They're not cured. They still have to keep seeing their therapist. They have to keep taking their medications, but they can basically get back to a normal life in the community. And so this is a tremendous benefit for these folks. And since so many people, across the north and northwest suburbs need this type of services, we would hope that you would vote yes and let Phil Haven go forward. Thank you.
Rob Mayer.
Good evening, Madam President, trustees, and esteemed leadership of Wheeling. My name is Rob Meyer, and I live on 2645 North Waterman Avenue in Arlington Heights, basically across the street from the proposed development. I've lived here for about 8 years and also been a participant in after-school events and Park District soccer as well as a coach. For a few years now, we've seen a sign and trailer parked out promoting the Hintz Point luxury condo and townhouse development. It had been on the proposed site for a while. Some people knew that the project didn't go and that this parcel was going to be sold off to DeVary Development Group. However, many more did not know. And it was only noticed in the Daily Herald, I think a day before the first set of meetings. The public hearing sign went up on the site shortly after the first Planning Commission meeting on March 8th, without removing the Hintz Point condo sign. And I have some pictures here that I'll provide as well. The Hintz Point sign came down on the 25th, the day before the last planning meeting. I'm opposed to say as a yes vote on this development because of the process. Again, felt like it was misleading and that the surrounding residents didn't have an opportunity to discuss these pieces and review this with the entire board. No public questions to address the project besides those that were on the docket were presented on April 16th or the 25th. And I would like to see a continuance of this vote until DeVary Development Group could publicly address our concerns. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Nick Helmer Jr. or Senior?
Junior.
Junior. Junior.
It's junior.
Good evening, Madam President and village trustees. My name is Nick Helmer Jr. I was a resident of Wheeling in the early 70s as a young boy, and I am currently a resident of Wheeling at 1745 Sienna Court. I am here on behalf of my daughter, Kate. This is a picture of Kate, and I've asked my sister to circulate some pictures. Kate loves the aquatic center. She loves going down the water slide. She loves the Wheeling pool. She takes swim lessons there. She has participated in Park District soccer programs. She is a cheerleader. She loves to cheerlead. She loves animals, and I have some pictures that I can give you. Kate loves her stuffed animal collection. Kate also loves ice cream, decorating Easter eggs, and most recently is participating in the Phantoms Buddy Ball program, a tremendous program that pairs up kids with challenge kids. Kate is now 10 years old. When she was 3 years old, she was diagnosed with PDD-NOS, pervasive developmental disorder not otherwise specified. It's on the autistic spectrum. She has a very high IQ, a very high functioning kid. If most of you met her in passing, you wouldn't have any idea that there was something wrong with her. But Kate has problems with communication skills. She has problems with social interaction skills. I'm here tonight on behalf of Kate to ask that you vote in favor of the Phil Haven development. In 8 years, Kate will turn 18, and I assure you she will not want to live at home. But she'll be able to live on her own with some assistance from others. And Phil Haven in the village of Wheeling would be a perfect place for my daughter, Kate. It's my understanding that the only real legal issues before the board tonight have to do with a variance request for parking, which I understand has already been addressed by the developer in the form of the land bank. And from what I'm an attorney, Kate's mom is an attorney, from my perspective, very minor request to permit them to have on-site offices. I've heard a lot of talk about bus routes and addresses, but those are really not questions before the board tonight. And I guess I would just address everybody else in the auditorium. When you go home tonight, I suggest anybody who has kids at home, you give them a hug and you give them a kiss. If your kids don't live at home, call them on the phone. Tell them you love them. And when you go to bed tonight, say a prayer and thank God that your child does not have a disability like Kate does. Thank you.
Mary Rose Peters.
Good evening, Madam President and esteemed Board of Trustees. My name is Mary Rose Peters. I live at 40 Circle Drive, Deer Park. I'm not a resident of Wheeling, but I answer the NAMI help and information line in your town. NAMI is the National Alliance for Mental Illness, of which I am the Vice President. I can tell you that it breaks my heart each time an elderly resident of Wheeling calls to request information on supportive housing for their adult family member that is living with one of these illnesses. And I don't have a lot of viable options to give them. Most often, the individual calling is in their 70s or 80s and are concerned about what will happen to their family member when the parents become ill, when they can no longer support their family member, will go to a nursing home, or die. The most pressing question is always, who will care for my family member? Who will make sure they get the assistance they need to continue to live their lives in a healthy way and continue to be successful? The prevalence of these illnesses are staggering. Without adequate, affordable, supportive housing, these are the individuals that may end up homeless and without the resources to get to their doctor's appointments and remain on medication. Treatment works, and everyone deserves this basic human dignity. And to address those who don't fully understand these illnesses, that are concerned that the neighbors and school students in the area will be impacted, I can assure you that the people living with these illnesses are already your neighbors and attending your high schools. In fact, some teach your children. People living well with these illnesses are your clerks, accountants, nurses, and work in your schools. But these people have the proper treatment and the proper support. With aging parents and family members, the support network can fall apart, and the result can be catastrophic for the well-being of people living with these illnesses. Phil Haven is an affordable, supportive housing project that is very much needed in Wheeling. My hope is that this type of housing will be built throughout the surrounding suburbs to keep people close to their families, friends, doctors, and employment. Thank you.
Maria Dersenstein. No. Ditchenstein? Yeah, it's Dersenstein. Maria? No? Okay. Hillary? You're Hillary?
Hi, my name is Hillary Nigro, and I live at 709 Lakeside Circle Drive. So I'm in the Lakeside Villas subdivision, and I do want to mention that people who say that they are here to represent Lakeside Villas are here to represent some people in Lakeside Villas, possibly, but certainly not the entire complex, because there are a number of us who have very different opinions about the Phil Haven project. I'm also a teacher. I teach students with disabilities and have watched for many, many years parents struggle with what do I do with my adult child once they are out of school and have no place to live. Adults with disabilities do not want to remain with their parents. They should not have to live with their parents simply because there is no alternative within their own community for them. I also have a 20-year-old son who has disabilities and who would potentially be a candidate for Philhaven were it to be built. It really saddens me that there is so much opposition to this project. I believe that a lot of people are operating out of fear and perhaps misconceptions about the nature of people with disabilities, and in particular people with mental illnesses, because there is a lot of negative press that goes along with those types of disabilities. Adults with disabilities face a number of challenges that are unrecognized and are different from the challenges that are faced by typical adults. Young adults with disabilities do not always have the same options that young adults without disabilities have. Individuals living with mental illness face even more challenges because the nature of their disability separates them from the community. Yes, there are supported housing, Section 8 types of housing within the village already. The problem is that an individual with a mental illness in particular, but with a disability overall, oftentimes needs more than just a low-income housing situation. They need a community to live in, a community that will accept them for who they are and not shun them or be afraid of them or exclude them because of the nature of their disability. One of the biggest benefits of a project like Philhaven is that it will allow people with disabilities to live in a community that truly is understanding of the needs of the people that live there, where the people will be free to be who they are. They will not need they will not feel the need to hide themselves or to pretend to be different than who they are. Another benefit of a project like Philhaven is that while the support is minimal and that the people who live there are people who are able to live independently, you do have people who may not recognize that they are in the beginning stages of a decline in their illness or in their disability. If they are living in a community of other people who are very similar to them, that understand them, they may have somebody there to point out that there's an issue that may be showing up. My son, who has a mental illness, he's bipolar. When he gets depressed, he may stay in his room for days on end. That's something that if he was living in traditional Section 8 housing would go unnoticed. If he was living in a community of people who understood mental illness, somebody would be there to knock on his door and say, hey, are you okay? Is there something going on? He doesn't need somebody there checking him to make sure he takes his medication every day, but he might need somebody to point out that there is something different about the way he's behaving, and maybe he might need some additional support, or maybe he may need to look at that. That's the kind of thing that does not exist currently in our community. People who need that kind of support are often forced to live in situations that are much more restrictive. They may be forced to live with their parents because they don't have another option, or they may be forced to live in a group home with people that have much more significant needs simply because there isn't any place else for them. It's very important that we offer a range of services for people with disabilities within our community. People have mentioned the whole transportation issue, and I know that's not really part of the ordinance that's going on right now, but I do want to say my son went to school in Evanston for 7 years. He got on that 234 bus every single morning, rain, shine, cold, hot, whatever, took that bus to the Des Plaines train station, got on another bus, and took the bus into Evanston. It is entirely possible to get wherever you need to using PACE from that bus stop. He does that a lot.
Sarah, your time is up.
Thank you.
Judith Royal.
Good evening. I'm Judith Royal. I live at 110 South Casper, Arlington Heights, Illinois. I am on the board of directors of the League of Women Voters, of the Arlington Heights, Mount Prospect, Buffalo Grove area, including Wheeling, Prospect Heights, and Elk Grove Village. I thank you for this opportunity to speak to you about Phil Haven. The League urges the Wheeling Village Board to support the development of supportive housing known as Phil Haven, a permanent 50-unit supportive housing apartment building for people coping with disabilities and recovering from mental illness. The DeVary Development Group, Kenneth Young Center, Alexian Brothers Center for Mental Health, and the Housing Task Force are proposing to build Phil Haven at 2418 Hintz Road. The League recognizes the need for housing that is both affordable and connected with supportive professional services in the north and northwest suburban area of Cook County. We are concerned that the need for such housing far outweighs the supply. The League of Women Voters' position on this issue is twofold. The League supports a comprehensive and coordinated system of treatment and rehabilitation services for adults and children with disabilities and mental illness. Also, the League advocates that local governments should provide in their zoning ordinances for residential programs for persons with disabilities and mental illness. Tragedy occurs when those who do not need institutional care are forced to endure the constriction of such care as their only option. Surely the Village of Wheeling loses when these individuals are denied the opportunity to live as independent, productive members of this community. By approving Phil Haven, the Village of Wheeling will make important progress towards meeting the needs for supportive, independent housing for individuals with mental illness and other disabilities. When a community applies for and accepts community development block grants, as Wheeling has done over the years, the community becomes obligated to address the housing needs of its residents. By voting in favor of building Phil Haven, the Village of Wheeling can continue its efforts to meet the various housing needs of its residents, as required under the Housing and Community Development Act. Like Mount Prospect, which recently approved and broke ground for Myers Place, a similar development, this village will become an example to neighboring communities on how to address the needs of all their residents. In the end, Wheeling will benefit by offering housing that lets some of its residents start their new lives as independent, productive members of this community in safe, affordable, and supportive housing. The League of Women Voters urges the Wheeling Board of Trustees to support Phil Haven. I appreciate this opportunity to speak to you, and for each of you, I have a copy of the League's letter.
Robert Grahola. Did he come? Robert Grahola? That is, okay. Julie Sebastio?
Good evening, and thank you, President and esteemed Board of Trustees. My name is Julie Savastio, and I'm a corporate controller at Remke Industries, 310 Chaddock Drive, Wheeling, Illinois. As corporate controller for the last 18 years and head of HR, I cannot tell you how many times we have had an employee or an employee with a family member that would benefit from a project such as Phil Haven. Remke Industries has forwarded their letter of support for this particular project, and when it is built, we welcome the residents of Phil Haven to apply for employment. We support the text amendment. Most of the residents of this particular facility will be in treatment, and having services provided in their living environment would be beneficial. I also support the parking variance. And just an observation from the employees that we have working at the Remke manufacturing facility, a majority of them do not drive to work in Wheeling. A majority of them are carpooling, or they're taking public transportation, or they're being resourceful in finding a way to get to work. And I would imagine the residents of Phil Haven will be equally resourceful. I'm also going to tell you that I am personally the parent of a daughter that's 30 years old that would qualify to be a resident in the Phil Haven facility, and she would be a good neighbor. So thank you very much this evening for your time.
Did you call Robert Gerhold by any chance?
Yes, sir.
You didn't say Gerhold, not Gerola.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Gerhold.
What did I say?
Thank you. I was slow on the uptake there. My name is Robert Gerhold. I am proud to have been a 41-year resident of Wheeling since 1971. Wheeling is a great town and is blessed with great leadership. You can count on me as a full supporter of the Phil Haven project. The Plan Commission has done a diligent job of addressing all the issues, including parking, flooding, and fallacious fears of the future residents themselves. The Commission has patiently listened to many arguments of Wheeling residents, as well as folks who live outside of Wheeling. I am pleased that the Commission sees Wheeling as a compassionate village with a heart. Projects like Phil Haven have been successful in other villages and will be successful in Wheeling, a project for which we can really be proud. Some of the issues raised about Phil Haven suggest some ageless, sacred quotations. You have done it to the least of these, my brethren. You have done it unto me. Matthew 25:40. Love your neighbor as yourself. Luke 10:25. I was a stranger and you welcomed me. Matthew 25:35. Thank you.
Jeffrey Creech. It's C-R-E-E-C-K, or, oh, there he is. C-R-E-E-C-H.
My name is Jeffrey Creech. I'm a 27-year resident of Jackson Drive, Wheeling proper. And I vote in every election. We've heard a lot of stories here today, a lot of sad stories about people that are mentally handicapped and they need a place to go. And I think that most of the people here agree with that. I think the issues that we have here are the Wheeling residents are basically opposed to the changes in the text amendment and with the issues of the parking. And also, for the most part, that this particular facility is going to be in a very dangerous area. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Chapman. I don't know. Maria Chapman. Okay. Okay.
Good evening. My name is Marty Chapman. I have been a 40-year resident of Wheeling, and I am also living in Lakeside Villas, and I'm not part of any particular group here. I don't have a sticker. I apologize. I will tell you very briefly how I feel. I sent you folks a letter, and I believe that, first of all, let me tell you, I am not against mental illness. I have a very close personal family member who is also mentally ill. I am not afraid of mentally ill people. I am not afraid of the Phil Haven project. But I am afraid that my basement walls are crumbling around me. And the reason for that is that since 1981, when the first complex went up behind Lakeside Villas, our flooding problems began. and they have continued unabated during the large storms with absolutely no relief. I am not an engineer, I'm not an attorney, and I certainly am not an architect, but I am a homeowner who for the first 15 years that I lived here enjoyed no flooding and thought it was a great place. I live in fear because I travel extensively, and I have come back from out of town several times to find that my house has been flooded in my absence. I'm willing to take on the expense of that. Obviously, 25 years has now passed with this flooding situation. I probably have another 15 years left, and I would like it to revert to the point where it's a nice place, so that if in some situation in the future, Phil Haven or some other project is approved, I don't think many of us would have an objection at that point. I honestly believe that the Village of Wheeling over 25 years has not served our complex in helping us solve this problem. We have been noted as being able to solve it ourselves, and I think we have now come to prove that that's not quite the case. I think it would be very, very wrong for the folks here and anyone else who's interested in the people living in that area not to fix this flooding problem. It can and it will continue without being addressed properly. Now is the time, and I certainly encourage you folks to look at that first. If it means delaying this project, whatever is necessary. There are 240 units. I'm not speaking for any of them, but I am speaking for the fact that I have been there for 40 years, and I know the damage that has been ensuing as a result of the rains during that time. I thank you for your time.
Karen Beyer.
Good evening, Madam Chairman and honorable trustees. My name is Karen Berger Tellingater. I live in Lakeside Villa, 1415 Bayside Lane. I've lived there since 1986. Love our community, love everything about Wheeling, and was so proud to move into Wheeling many years ago. My concern is about the safety of the residents that will be living in Phil Haven. It was said, I received something that said that on-site support staff will include one live-in resident support specialist for any overnight emergency needs. I feel that so many people living in under one roof that do have problems and are not on medication or whatever the cause needs more than this amount of staff. They need to have staffing. I work with caregivers of mentally ill. I work with psychiatrists, and they couldn't believe that this is going to be the ratio for this amount of people living in this community. They feel that the residents need greater structure, greater supervision, and I hope you'll take that into account, and thank you for allowing me to speak.
Mr. or Mrs. Reingold?
Good evening, everyone. I am Susie Reingold, the president of the Lakeside Villas Homeowners Association. I am here to tell you that I do not represent every single resident's opinion that lives in Lakeside Villas. However, I do represent the entire Lakeside Villas Homeowners Association. That is 242 homes. We do not either support nor oppose the development that is being prospected in this area for Phil Haven. We have been advised by our municipal attorney that it's wrong, illegal, and discriminatory to oppose this type of development. On those grounds, we have been concerned with two items: the flooding issue for the safety of our residents and the parking variance. We strongly recommend that you leave the parking variance intact because it causes less asphalt to be covered over that property, therefore allowing less flooding to occur for Lakeside. If in the future you feel it's necessary to have more parking we've recommended that it be built to the east side as perhaps a double-decker or underground. Our concerns with flooding are that we've asked Manhart Consulting and had him advise us with the IG engineers what's the best way to develop this property so that we can have less flooding. The village staff has worked with them. There was a proposal that the Planning Commission approved, and it has been agreed upon between all parties. We would appreciate that that stays intact, because whatever we do does help Jackson Drive, because if we don't flood, then they don't flood. It's a very simple, neighborly type of situation. We do thank you for listening to everybody's comments, and our position stands as we've stated. We are concerned about the flooding, and we are concerned about keeping the parking variance intact. Thank you.
That's it, Madam President.
Thank you. We have no staff reports. We have a consent agenda.
No, Madam President.
Old business, new business.
New business, all listed items for discussion and possible action. Item 13A has 3 ordinances related to proposed multifamily residential building at 1450 West Hints Road, currently 2418-2422 Hints Road. The first ordinance amending Title 19 zoning of the Wheeling Municipal Code to establish a definition and regulations for residential support services, docket number 2012-5.
Make a motion to approve with a question.
Motion by Trustee Vogel.
Second.
Second by Trustee Adjuris. And your question?
Actually, it's 2. In the past, you stated that you are not, yes, please. You stated that you are not a non-profit organization. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And that you pay 100% property taxes?
We do.
There are no exemptions, special exemptions that you apply for with this type of housing?
There are not.
So there are no reductions whatsoever?
We're taxed as a Section 42 multifamily development project, so we pay 100% of what the assessor tells us to pay.
Okay. All right, second question was, it's been repeated time and time again that it's critical to find sites with excellent public transportation. It's also been stated a couple of times that you're working with PACE to have a van on site. Has that ever come about? I mean, when you're working on it, has somebody made a phone call? Are you meeting with PACE? Where is that?
Yes to all of those questions. By stating that we're working with PACE, as you received a support letter from PACE themselves, obviously in the suburbs, public transportation is what it is. And so one of the conversations that we've been pursuing is how can we make living in the suburbs feasible for people with disabilities. So we're pursuing both, of course, the existing Dial-A-Ride program, and then in addition, there's 2 separate van programs. One is a PACE or an owned program called their Van Pool Sharing Program, which means the PACE would actually have a van on site for residents of Phil Haven to work together, similar to IGO or I'm blanking on the other car sharing, Zipcar, thank you, the other car sharing program. So the residents could form together to commute or drive to the grocery store, go to the movies, etc. The second would be a development-owned van for similar purposes. Okay. So all of those concepts are being pursued.
A letter of support from PACE is great. Okay, anyone can get that, to be honest with you. Okay, but is there any contractual agreement with PACE to have a van on site? And if not, is Phil Haven willing to buy their own van and have it on site?
There's not a contract yet. My understanding is that's not necessary at this point. If you have the people to support the program, it's their commitment to do that. And in addition, yes, the project is committed to having a van on site for residents.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Trustee Argyris?
No.
Trustee Here?
No.
Trustee Hein?
No.
Trustee Vogel?
No.
Trustee Brady?
No. No.
Trustee Lang?
No.
President Abiscato?
Yes.
Item 13A2, ordinance granting variation from Title 19 zoning of the Wheeling Municipal Code relating to required parking for a multifamily residential building, 1450 West Hintz Road, currently 2418-2422 Hintz Road, docket number 2012-3.
So move with a comment.
Motion made by Trustee Adjuris with a comment, second by
Second.
Trustee Lang.
If I may?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to say there's no debate for the necessity for a project like this in this community. I think it would be a great asset. I really do. But like every development that is brought before us, we must consider the information provided within the logic and regulation of the village code. I take that very seriously. I've been around 16 years and 4 years as a plan commissioner. I support the individuals and families that would make use of this type of project, but this is the wrong building, in my opinion, in the wrong part of town. The petitioner is making an emotional argument for a non-emotional question. This is about location, land, construction, engineering, building design, zoning, and parking. The problem to me is granting a text amendment for a residential support service in an R4 zone. According to our zoning code that we've worked hard on, there's 5 other zoning districts within the community that we allow this type of use as a special use, not a text amendment. So my opinion, and I've worked hard and I've gone through this stuff for days and been to the meetings and watched the meetings and come to the meetings. In my opinion, if we allow a text amendment in the R4 zone, it's setting a bad precedent in the future for other R4 developments within this community. And that's just my opinion and my comment that I needed to make. Thank you.
Madam President.
Yes, Trustee Brady.
I've spent close to 25 years serving the community in either on the Plan Commission or up here at the Village Board, and I do have a problem with that parking variation. In 18 years as a Plan Commissioner and 7 years as a trustee, we have never, ever, ever given anyone that type of that big of a variation. And you say, okay, maybe you speculate that you don't need it, but you don't know what the visitors are going to be coming here. There's so many issues that can go on. And as things grow, and as your clients grow, and maybe you do get more cars, you have no other means of parking. You're not going to put them in a dozen at a time. You're going to put them in all at once. And we can't wait for you to expand to the point where you need them all. And they can't park on Hintz Road, and they can't park on the grass. I think you should just go ahead and put all the parking in and be done with it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Argyris?
No.
Trustee Here?
No.
Trustee Hein?
No.
Trustee Vogel?
No.
Trustee Brady?
No.
Trustee Lang?
No.
President Abiscato?
No.
Item 13A3, ordinance granting site plan and appearance approval to construct a multifamily residential building, 1450 West Hintz Road, currently 2418-2422 Hintz Road, docket number PC 12-10.
So move.
Second.
Motion made by Trustee Adjuris, second by Trustee Vogel. Roll call, please.
Trustee Argyris?
No.
Trustee Here?
No.
Trustee Hein?
No.
Trustee Vogel?
No.
Trustee Brady?
No.
Trustee Lang?
No.
President Abiscato?
Yes.
Item 13B, resolution to accept and approve a renewal option for contractual services for sandblasting and recoating of fire hydrants for fiscal year 2012.
So move.
Second.
Motion made by Trustee Adjuris, second by Trustee Here. Roll call, please.
Trustee Argyris?
Yes.
Trustee Here?
Yes.
Trustee Hein?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Brady?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
President Abiscato?
Yes.
The bills, right?
We're on official communication.
Approval of the
Well, we
bills.
don't have any official communications.
Okay, and bills.
We have approval of bills of May 3rd through May 16th.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Trustee Vogel, second by Trustee Hein. Roll call, please.
Trustee Argyros?
Yes.
Trustee Heer?
Yes.
Trustee Hein?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Brady?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
President Everscotto?
Yes. We have a motion to go into executive session for pending, probable, or imminent litigation, land acquisition, and land disposition.
So moved.
Motion made by Trustee Heer.
Second.
Second by Trustee Brady. Roll call, please.
Trustee Argyros?
Yes.
Trustee Heer?
Yes.
Trustee Hein?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Brady?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
President Everscotto?
Yes, board will go in executive session at 7:55 and return at 8:10.